Most people think the world is controlled by the people we can see. Presidents, billionaires, corporate executives, central banks, governments. But power has changed. The most important systems in the world are increasingly invisible. You cannot see the algorithm deciding what you watch. You cannot see the cloud infrastructure storing your business. You cannot see the cables carrying global commerce beneath the ocean. You cannot see the semiconductor supply chain behind the device in your hand. You cannot see the financial architecture moving trillions of dollars through the global economy. But every day, you depend on them. And this is where the modern world becomes difficult to understand. Because the most powerful systems are rarely the systems that attract the most attention. The visible product is not always the real business. The company is not always the real asset. The transaction is not always where the money is made. And the person you see on the screen is not always the person controlling the system. Behind the visible economy, there is another economy, an economy of infrastructure. Access, networks, code, capital, compute, and control. This is the architecture beneath the world. And once you learn how to see it, the global economy begins to look completely different.
Look at almost any successful company. You will see a product, an application, a website, a platform, a factory, a bank, a marketplace, something visible, something easy to understand. But the visible layer is often only the surface. Take a digital platform. Most people see an app, but beneath the app, there are servers, cloud infrastructure, payment systems, identity systems, data pipelines, software frameworks, distribution networks, and thousands of invisible dependencies. The application is only the interface. The system is the business. The same pattern appears everywhere. A bank is not simply a building. A marketplace is not simply a website. A cloud company is not simply a collection of servers. A semiconductor company is not simply a chip designer. A modern corporation is a machine, and the most valuable part of the machine is often the part the customer never sees. This is the first principle of Nexera. The surface attracts attention. The system captures value.
For most of human history, power was easy to identify. It belonged to whoever controlled land, factories, ships, oil, banks, armies, physical assets. But technology changed the architecture of power. The world began moving from ownership to access, from assets to infrastructure, from products to platforms, from employees to networks, from physical machines to software-controlled systems. This did not eliminate ownership. It made ownership harder to see. A company may not own every business operating on its platform, but it may control access to the customers. A cloud provider may not own every application running on its infrastructure, but it may control the compute. A marketplace may not produce every product being sold, but it may control the transaction. A payment network may not create the goods being purchased, but it may sit between the buyer and the seller. And every time value moves through the system, the architecture has an opportunity to capture a portion of it. This is the transformation. Power no longer needs to own everything. It only needs to become difficult to avoid.
The old economy was built around ownership. You bought a car. You owned the car. You bought a building. You owned the building. You bought software. You installed the software. But the new economy increasingly operates differently. You subscribe, you rent, you access, you connect, you depend. The difference is profound because access creates recurring relationships. A one-time transaction ends, an access relationship continues, and the system can continue collecting value, month after month, year after year. This is why the most valuable companies in the modern economy are often not selling products. They are controlling gateways. The gateway to software, the gateway to cloud computing, the gateway to digital advertising, the gateway to payments, the gateway to information, the gateway to distribution, the gateway to intelligence. Once a system becomes the gateway, the economics change. The company no longer needs to produce everything. It only needs to control the point through which everything must pass, and that point can become a toll booth.
Imagine a highway. You do not need to own every car. You do not need to own every truck. You do not need to manufacture the products being transported. You only need to own the road. Every vehicle that uses it becomes part of your economic system. The digital economy has created thousands of roads. Some are visible, most are not. An app store can become a road. A search engine can become a road. A cloud platform can become a road. An API can become a road. A payment network can become a road. A marketplace can become a road. And once enough economic activity depends on that road, the road becomes more valuable than any single transaction taking place on it. This is the economics of the digital toll booth. The system does not need to win every transaction. It only needs to remain present. When the transaction happens, when the data moves, when the application launches, when the customer searches, when the business processes a payment, the system collects, not because it produced the entire economy, but because the economy has been designed to pass through it.
Every digital experience has a physical foundation. The cloud is not in the sky, it is in buildings. Buildings filled with machines. Machines connected by cables. Cables crossing oceans. Power grids feeding data centers. Cooling systems removing heat. Semiconductors processing instructions. And software coordinating the entire structure. The digital world is physical, but its physical architecture is increasingly hidden. You open an application, you see a screen. The system sees an infrastructure stock. At the bottom, energy, then hardware, then networks, then compute, then storage, then operating systems, then software, then applications, then the user interface. The closer you move toward the surface, the more familiar the system becomes. The deeper you move, the fewer companies remain. And at the deepest layers, a small number of companies can become essential to entire industries. This is why infrastructure creates power, not because it is visible, but because everything above it depends on it.
The greatest systems in the world share a common characteristic. They scale faster than the resources required to operate them. This is leverage. A factory can produce more products, but it requires more machines, more workers, more buildings, more physical inputs. A digital system can behave differently. Once the infrastructure is built, the next customer may cost very little to serve. The next transaction may be processed automatically. The next user may enter through the same network. The next business may use the same software. The next application may run on the same cloud. This creates a powerful economic asymmetry. Revenue can grow faster than the underlying organization. And when the gap between output and input expands, the system becomes highly scalable. This is why software can become infrastructure, why platforms can become economies, why APIs can become distribution channels, why marketplaces can become financial machines, and why automation can transform a small team into a large operating system. The wealth is not created simply by doing more work. It is created by building a system that requires less additional work for every unit of growth. That is leverage, and leverage is one of the deepest sources of modern wealth.
But leverage alone is not enough. A system must also capture value. This is where business architecture becomes important. A company can create enormous value and still capture very little of it. Another company can create less value but control the transaction, the distribution, the infrastructure, the payment, or the standard, and capture a much larger share. This is why the question is not simply who created the product. The more important question is who controls the path to the customer, who controls the infrastructure, who controls the data, who controls the standard, who controls the transaction, and who controls the layer that everyone else must use. The economy is filled with companies competing to create better products, but the greatest fortunes are often created by controlling the architecture around those products: the platform, the marketplace, the network, the infrastructure, the financial layer, the operating system, the access point. The system does not need to create everything. It only needs to become essential to everything.
Control is not the same as ownership. A company can own an asset and still have limited control over the market. Another company can own less, but control the interface through which the market operates. This distinction explains much of the modern economy. A platform may not own the businesses using it, but it controls their distribution. A cloud provider may not own the applications running on its infrastructure, but it controls their compute environment. A payment network may not manufacture the products being sold, but it controls the movement of money. A marketplace may not produce the inventory, but it controls the connection between supply and demand. The system becomes powerful when leaving becomes expensive. Not always financially, sometimes operationally, sometimes psychologically, sometimes technically, sometimes strategically. The deeper the system becomes embedded, the more difficult it becomes to replace. And once replacement becomes difficult, access becomes valuable, dependence becomes revenue, and infrastructure becomes power.
The architecture of modern power can be understood through 4 layers. The first is the physical layer: energy, land, ports, factories, ships, data centers, semiconductor facilities. This is the world of global power architecture. The second is the infrastructure layer: networks, cloud, servers, cables, compute, operating systems. This is the world of digital infrastructure. The third is the control layer: platforms, marketplaces, payment systems, standards, distribution, monopolies. This is the world of access. The fourth is the intelligence layer: algorithms, artificial intelligence, automation, agents, autonomous systems. This is the layer that is beginning to change the others. The future will not be defined by one technology. It will be defined by the interaction between all 4 layers: physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, economic control, and machine intelligence. Together, they form the architecture of the modern economy. For decades, the internet made information cheaper. Software made operations more efficient.
Cloud computing made infrastructure accessible. Platforms made distribution scalable. Now, artificial intelligence is beginning to make intelligence itself programmable. This could become one of the largest transitions in economic history. Because intelligence has always been a bottleneck. You needed people to analyze, people to write, people to code, people to coordinate, people to make decisions. But systems are increasingly capable of performing portions of these functions. The question is not whether machines will replace every human. That is too simple. The deeper question is, which systems will control the machines? Who will provide the compute? Who will own the models? Who will control the data? Who will distribute the intelligence? Who will build the infrastructure that autonomous systems depend on? The future of AI will not be determined only by the intelligence of the model. It will also be determined by the architecture surrounding it. And once again, the visible product may not be the most important asset. The system beneath it may be.
This is the framework we will use to decode the modern economy. First, find the system. What invisible structure makes the visible product possible? Second, find the bottleneck. What cannot easily be replaced? Third, find the leverage. How does the system scale? Fourth, find the access point. Where must users, businesses, capital, or data pass through? Fifth, find the money flow. Who pays? Who collects? Who takes a percentage? Who receives recurring revenue? Sixth, find the moat. Why is the system difficult to escape? And finally, find the wealth. Who benefits from controlling the architecture? Because wealth is rarely random. It is often the economic consequence of position. A position inside a network, a position above a bottleneck, a position between supply and demand, a position inside infrastructure, a position at the point where value must pass. This is the Nexera lens.
The world you see is only the surface. Behind every application, there is infrastructure. Behind every infrastructure, there is capital. Behind every platform, there is a network. Behind every network, there is a position. And behind every position, there is a system. The most powerful companies in the world are not always the companies with the largest products. They are often the companies sitting beneath the largest number of products. They do not need to own every business. They need to become essential to the businesses that do. They do not need to control every transaction. They need to control the infrastructure through which transactions occur. They do not need to own the future. They need to own the systems that make the future possible. This is why the most important question is no longer, who is the richest person in the world? Or, which company is the largest? The more important question is, what system does the world depend on? Who built it? Who controls it? And who profits every time the world uses it? Because power has changed, it is no longer always sitting at the top. Sometimes, it is underneath everything. And the people who understand that architecture see the economy differently. The future does not belong only to those who work the hardest. It increasingly belongs to those who build the systems that make work scale. This is Nexera, Decodal Systems, Architecting Wealth.